everyone. Wait, let me get some music. You guys probably heard this song a million times just because I like it. And here's the part where I pray that the volume's okay. And if it's not, oh well. I'm probably low too. Let's move some stuff around. That was probably obnoxious sounding, but you guys will be fine. So someone asked me what type of runes I like to use, right? And obviously, I'd write anything down. There are a lot of runes to use, but what I've been using so far is, I feel like there are two distinct choices to make, right? You either want Arcane Comet, which is probably one of my favorite runes for poke mages still, right? Especially if you build a lot of damage, right? That 0.2 AP is a lot better than this, right? This is this takes forever to come back, right? And it's 0.1, right? But this, it can hit multiple people. Like this is my favorite thing, actually, right? It can hit multiple people. It does the most damage over a game in most cases, right? Whether you're winning or losing, this rune will be useful. It will always be useful. This rune basically just says that it's extra damage. This rune is wonderful, right? It's super good in team fights. It's super good in lane for extra poke. It's just good, right? So you're either choosing between this, in my opinion, and maybe this, right? Assuming that you're playing mid, right? I'm talking about mid. We'll talk about support afterwards, but we'll talk about mid right now because that's my main role, right? Now look at this. This does 15% of AP, right? Which is where most of your damage is going to come from. It's going to come from your AP scaling, right? That's what you're playing mid for. That's what's going to happen to you, right? Now I'll give 15 instead of 20. Instead of 0.2, it's 0.15, right? Now it does 20 to 60, and it can only be accessed when they're at 40%, right? I hate to say it, this is the Smurf rune. This rune trash, right? Now obviously there comes a point in the game where you begin to be able to stack these really quickly, but cause someone will eventually be low, right? But this rune is not it, right? This rune is cute, I think. And if you're not afraid of your laning phase, right, and you think you're going to be able to bully during your laning phase, go for it. This is a great rune. If you think you're going to slap, this is a great rune for that. But the other rune is more effective, period. Like, it's better. This rune just keeps getting nerfed. They're going to keep nerfing it, right? Anytime this rune is good, like it has been in the past, it's just going to get nerfed, like it always has. This rune has been untouched for the ages. It's never been buffed, never been nerfed. All the runes around it being changed left and right. Things getting better for melees, which is what happened to Phase Rush. Getting worse for ranged champs. Well, they weakened this as a whole because of like Zoe abuse and stuff, right? But this rune has always been a good, solid pick that'll never change. Right? I've checked my damage throughout games where I've won and lost, and I've to compare the two to the point where I'm feeling like this is it. Now another thing about grabbing this, which is what I would do, right? There is actually a third option, right? Maybe you want to steal Spellbook or Glacial, right? I think the Glacial playstyle is trash. Only because you end up lacking damage, right? And obviously damage isn't everything. The utility this brings is wonderful, right? But I feel like that's just better done in a different way. You have E, right? You have E. You have Alt. You have W, right? You have a myriad of ways to catch people. You do not need this, right? You do not need this. All of your skills have massive range. You do not need this, right? This is for making sure that you can land a difficult skill shot or locking someone down. And it works best when, this is another rune, this works best when you're ahead, right? This is not a good rune for being behind or even, right? This is a good rune for getting help from your jungler or something, right? That's not something that we're dealing with. That's not something that we're planning for, right? We're trying to be baseline useful, or at least that's what I like to do. I like to be baseline useful all the time. Until spellbook, hey man, I can't tell you how good this one is. This one's really good. But this one requires a lot of forethought. This rune is actually, and like, I feel like this, the rest of this tree's not too good anyway, right? But this rune right here, this allows you access to Transcendence, right? I know this doesn't feel like a lot, but they've changed the way that ability haste works. Even though you don't have a cap and you can build a ton of it, on average, if you're building to do damage, you end up with less of it. So because of that, ending up with this is beautiful. It's beautiful. There's a difference between me basically having the old 30-40% and having 20 because of the way they've changed the items, right? All the items that you need on your character don't come with ability haste anymore, right? Or cooldown reduction. They don't come with as much, or relatively anyway, right? And that's okay because the old ability haste was really strong, right? So I don't mind. Yeah, so like, I want this one. I want this, right? This is something you can do because Seraphine doesn't get hit often anyway, right? But sometimes you get poked and then you have to play the rest of the fight without it. I want to have access to my rune at all times. Now you guys should be getting a theme about me by now, right? I want my things to be useful all the time. All of the time. And you know what's useful all the time? This is useful all the time, right? It gives you 250 mana, because you will eventually stack it. You can't go a game. I challenge you to go a game where you don't hit someone with 10 spells. I challenge you. You will hit someone with 10 spells. It's gonna happen. It'll even happen sometimes before your first recall. But that's... I'll make another video to go in depth about the rune, because this rune's really good. And there's an important way to use it. We're going to talk about it right now. We're going to talk about the runes as a whole. Now, we have this thing right here, which is Scorch, right? Scorch really good. Scorch really good. It gives your laning phase that... it does. But this is a team fighting champ. Gathering Storm it is. Now, here's where the first real choice is, I think. There's a real choice to be made here, and I've been arguing with myself about it for ages. And the thought is, do I give myself this? Some people want Relentless Hunter, so you can get more ults. The ult comes back pretty fast. You'll have an ult. By the end of the game, right, you'll be able to ult every fight. Even if you ult, die, come back, walk back to mid and ult again. You'll have it every fight by the end of the game anyway. You'll end up, and you know, you can't use your ult everywhere anyway, right? So you end up just having your ult often, right? But that doesn't mean that you get to use it more, you know what I mean? It's like, this is out the door. This is actually pretty good with the new changes if you build Loon's Echo, and they're about to buff Loon's Echo. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what I do. I build Ravenous Hunter in this, if I decide that I would like to have infinite health. Or this, because the pearl is kind of cute, right? But if I want to have infinite health, I grab Ravenous Hunter. I promise you guys, by mid-game, if you get by any sort of poke and you're playing her, you have to recall. Her health pool is really low. If your health is not full, it might as well be empty, because you will die to anything. And that's her balance, because she has such range, such utility, such power, right? If you do this, if you get hit by anything, if you throw out a skill, your health will be full. That's just what will happen. During team fights, while you're fighting, your health will be full. But if you're like me and you're trying to determine whether you even get hit enough to use it, because I always have massive healing, but I don't know if it's effective healing, right? Because when you have low HP, if you have the confidence in yourself to stay out of trouble, right, you can continue with all of her range. You can continue to be useful in a fight, even if your health is low. Just don't get hit, right? That's like a fighting game concept. Don't get hit. So if you feel like you're someone who doesn't get hit, you can go this route. The new Presence of Mind has been nerfed heavily. Beforehand, she had no mana issues if you built... There are 2 items you needed. So one item. You only needed the Seraphine Embrace. The old Seraphine Embrace gave 1400 mana. This gave 500 when it was max. You never had to worry about mana. You can actually spam to your heart's content if you had this. You would regen to mana faster and you'd lose it. But this is a little different. At first I thought it was trash, to be honest with you. If you go look at another one of my videos, you'll see I probably call it trash, right? Because I thought it was. But damaging an enemy increases your mana regeneration, right? Damaging them. That includes autos. Seraphine has massive auto range when she has her notes stacked, right? And her skills are big. You can have this up at all times during team fights. During lane, you can repeatedly poke your enemy just to fill up your mana. This rune is really good in takedowns, which means that during a team fight, you will never run out. This setup essentially gives you infinite mana, but you run dry on survivability. Obviously, this is just a good rune. You just grab it. Because you don't need this tenacity thing, because if you get stunned, you're dead anyway. You don't need to reduce the timer on the stun, I promise. These are obviously not useful. This is actually pretty cool. Not this one. This one's actually pretty cool, right? Because based on how much health more than you that people have, but the issue with it is that it scales a little too slow, I think. Even though she has a really low HP pool, right? Generally, people won't have twice as much HP as her, right? Generally. Especially because you have to take into account the fact that you want to be able to demolish ADCs and supports as well as tanks and bruisers, right? So that leaves us with this one. This one always works. Anytime someone's under half health, 40%, this is on, basically. It's on, right? This is what I'm here for. Now, obviously, I take ability haste. If you don't take ability haste and you do this instead, right? You can clear the wave before you recall. You can start clearing waves. But that's silly to me. To me, it makes more sense to just recall once. If you recall once and you grab 2 amplifying tomes, you can now clear the wave with a double Q and an E. That's 900 gold. If you recall at 900 gold, you become Seraphine. After you clear the wave, the game opens up to you and you can do whatever you want. Now, these are the runes I use, right? I'm not going to hang on this too much because these just came back up because patching the notes and stuff. But this is what I do. Now, for alternatives, I have also done... Sometimes you see Zed. Zed's probably the most difficult matchup you'll face at any time. Zed has much range as you, and he's way more dangerous. I'll talk about matchups some other time, right? But like, sometimes you want to do this. Sometimes you literally want to do this. Maybe you want bone plating because you don't think you can survive 10 minutes, but you can just survive 10 minutes. I have faith in you, right? Sometimes you literally want to do this, right? I've done that before to check how powerful it was because, it's new preseason stuff, right? I've done it to check it. This will save your life. I don't actually grab this because it takes 14 minutes. You can buy it faster than 14 minutes, right? So we don't want this. This rune has been nerfed, right? Do I sleep now? This rune has been nerfed. So I grabbed this because this is just useful. Once you get it, it's useful, right? Doesn't matter when you get it, since you have to buy boots anyway. You have to buy boots, period, right? So this, if you do this, right? This is a good one, right? You can also do this if you want, unless you're dead, right? But if you do this, you will not die to anyone. No one can kill you despite her small HP, her low HP that she has, right? Because you'll have access to barrier, you'll have access to be able to teleport back to lane after getting poked and buying an item without losing any waves. You'll have access to ghost, you'll have access to cleanse, you'll have access to heal. You'll be able to use all of those defensive runes. Clarity, you'll be able to spam mana and use clarity. This rune, this setup is OD, but I think this is for like experienced gameplay. I'm not doing that because even though I only play her and I've played her a few hundred games, I just got plat with her. I know better, right? I know better. I'm gonna be doing this right now because I don't really take hits, but as my game progresses, maybe I'll get to a point where people are poking me no matter what, and I'll swap back to domination. I'll just take better care of my mana. But that's what I'm doing for runes right now. And a later date, we'll talk about matchups and stuff. But until then, guys, stay easy, right? Good luck. Try stuff out, experiment, right? Because maybe you guys can find something and you can bring it to me so I can learn, right? Because I'm learning just as much as you guys. Anyway, peace out.